Hey, happy St. Patrick's Day to everyone, especially you. Yes, you. It is time to celebrate responsibly with 55 minutes of this show we call The Sweat, presented by DraftKings. I am your host, Emerson Latzia. We got more than Guinness on tap, baby. We're breaking down the moves of March around the NFL and Major League Baseball. Two teams trying to out-tank each other in the NBA. Sticky puck with the killer P's, plus a new way to win big on DraftKings. F1 Fantasy Racing is now available. We will tell you everything you need to know to help you master all the F1 DFS contests available on DK this weekend. But first, let the madness begin. Today's NCAA tournament first round action, it features some of the bluest of blue blood. So Kansas, Kentucky, UCLA, UNC, Indiana, plus both of last year's finalists, Baylor and Gonzaga. Joining us now, live from Las Vegas, DraftKings contributors Julian Edlow and Colin Sherwin. Are you guys sitting like 2 feet from each other? Or are you in the same hotel room?
Yes, watch this. Just kidding.
Okay, I actually was going to be very, very impressed there. Way to break the third wall. But thank you.
What are we, about 3 blocks apart? We're about a monorail ride apart right now. So, but we will be linking up here momentarily.
Awesome.
And fun.
Well, thank you both for being kind enough to wake up early after a long night to share with us your best bets for today. 3 of the top seeds in action. I don't think we're expecting any 2018 UMBC-like upsets by a 16 seed. However, which number one is least likely to cover the spread, Jules?
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to be betting any of the dogs today either, but if I had to, it would be a Baylor fade because they're the most vulnerable of all these 1 seeds. They're not as healthy. They're not playing as well right now. They got knocked off in their first Big 12 games. So Baylor is the team that you want to go against. I don't necessarily know if today is the day or not, but if they wind up with a UNC team in the second round, they could lose. If they wind up with UCLA in the Sweet 16, they could lose. Baylor's got a really tough road. We'll see if Norfolk State can keep it within 20 or not.
All right, what do you think here, Colin?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Texas Southern, but like Julian, I hate all these games. I'm just to stay away. If anything, I might be a Gonzaga to win and cover because Gonzaga does tend to just absolutely pave teams in the first round. 30, 40 plus is usually not an issue. But Texas Southern just plays a weird style that you don't see with a lot of teams that they're going to face in Kansas. At times does tend to drift through games, especially if they can't get the ball inside to Ajabi. So I'm going to go, I will say Texas Southern has the best chance to cover. But again, these are complete stayaways. Just there's better games on the board today. Go win those.
All right, so we might not find any upsets here, guys, among the top seeds. But which spots do you like betting on the dog in day one, Colin?
You know, the dogs today, I think this is going to be a weird tournament in that some teams that you don't expect are going to make some advances, but I don't see, and this is how it always starts, I don't see a ton of dogs out there on the board that I think are going to be an issue. Everybody's on Vermont. I think Arkansas is going to defend them really well. I actually like Arkansas today. I think that's a good one. Teams that tend to play teams close are going to have trouble. UCLA, 13.5 against Akron. Akron just might hang around long enough to stay in that game. Some reason San Francisco is a 2-point dog at Murray State, I guess because it's a 7-10 game or whatever. But I think San Francisco just wins that game outright. So those are the dogs I like today. But I think we're going to see a lot more upsets later in the tournament, maybe not necessarily today.
Okay, Jules, do you agree with that? You think it's going to come a little later?
Yeah, so I don't see many dogs that I love on Thursday, honestly. And I think, like Colin said, there's a lot of trendy dogs where taking the favorite is going to be going against the grain. And we've seen Arkansas now tick down to 4.5, which is what I've been waiting for. I wrote them up in my article on Monday at 5, but I haven't put it out as a bet for this reason. What am I going to do later today? I'm going to put out Arkansas minus 4.5 because we're getting the better number, and I don't think UVM can stick around. So I'm going to take this and go with the trendiest dog of the tournament and go the other way. Everybody wants South Dakota State. I feel like Providence is the underdog in this game, and yet they are growing from 2 to 3 now on DraftKings Sportsbook. Late money coming in on Providence, which I think is the correct side. Jackrabbits won 21 in a row in Summit League. Great. What were they before that? They won 1 game as an underdog this year. It was by 3 against Washington State. They lost a game when favored by 22.5 to Idaho. They lost a game favored to Washington by double digits. They were a slight dog against Missouri State, lost by double digits. The most comparable game I can find here is Alabama. The Jackrabbits were 12.5-point dogs against Alabama. They lost by 16. So everybody's all about this South Dakota State team no matter what. So give me Providence. I know we're playing by our own rules here. They're a favorite, but they feel like an underdog, honestly, the way that everybody's talking about South Dakota State.
All right, most bet dog today right now, guys. 56% of the bets on New Mexico money line against UConn. So a little 12-5 there, Jules.
Wow.
Yep.
I was just opening up the splits email. That kind of surprises me, but it is interesting. That UConn game is going to be a stay away for me, but that it surprises me that UConn is not getting as much support. And I think that says a lot about this New Mexico team, and to see that they're the most bet dog on the money line, I'm a little surprised.
Yeah, are you as surprised as Jules on that one, Colin?
A little bit, yeah, but hold on. As Jules just informed me, because I hadn't had a chance to have coffee yet, look, this is me hitting a button on an app. Yes, I just took Arkansas -4.5. There is no reason on God's green earth to think that this Vermont team, who has beat up on the finest mediocre athletes in the Northeast of the country, should have any
guys like
reason.
Guys like Emerson.
Guys like
Thank
Emerson. The American East Conference is filled with guys like Emerson. So I think this is just a spot where they're going to see a defense they haven't seen all year. I've got Arkansas in the Final Four. So full disclosure here, I am definitely that guy in that mark for that team. But 4.5 here is just, come on. Let's go. This is a game Arkansas could absolutely run them off the floor, especially because they've had all of this. All they've heard is how good Vermont is, how well Vermont shoots the three, how they have guys 1 through 5 who can play interchangeably. They've heard all of this. They know how to defend it. They know what they're going to do. They'll come out with a plan. They're going to attack athletically in transition and in space. Give me the Hogs.
Let's go Hogs.
Hey, 62% of bets on Vermont to cover. Jules, your favorite team to cover the spread on Thursday today is who?
Oh, man. All right. So I love Arkansas. I love Providence. We've hit them enough. The other one that I wrote up in my article, Gonzaga first half. It's down from 14 to 13. Thank you. I will lay the 13 with the Zags in the first half. Look at this Georgia State team. They won 10 games in a row in the Sun Belt. Cool. They've been favored 12 games in a row. Cool. They've been an underdog twice since New Year's, and both of those times they were an underdog of 2 points or less. Let's look at what happened anytime this Georgia State team has played any type of decent team. Georgia Tech, 4.5-point dogs. They lost by double digits. They were a 9.5-point dog to Mississippi State. They lost by 29. Even earlier in the season, they were underdogs against Atlantic 10 competition, mid-major, my Rhode Island Rams. They lost by 35 to URI. They lost by 16 to Richmond. Why is Gonzaga not going to be up 20-plus at halftime? They are.
Colin, which game totals interest you today?
So I'm going to get really nerdy on you guys. So
Go ahead.
Here's how the NCAA tournament gets officiated. Officials in the NCAA tournament advance based on how the game is called, okay? So the referee supervisors also change, because normally you work with a conference. Now you're working directly with the NCAA. The NCAA has very specific rules of how they want these games called. Teams that put the ball on the deck and drive to the basket are going to get calls. Teams that put the ball, that dribble and attack the rim, are going to get the benefit of the doubt. That means more fouls. That means more overs. You want teams that put the ball on the deck and drive to get and bet overs in these games. There's going to be a ton of clock stoppages. If you just paper the overs for the first 16 games today, I think you go at least 9-7, 10-6, and make money. So just over. Early in NCAA tournaments, always just go over, because of the additional amount of foul calls and the amount that the clock will stop, and you'll be putting points on the board while the clock is not running.
Jules, are you on as many overs when compared to Colin here?
No, I'm on no overs. I thought you asked me for my best bet. I didn't know we were talking totals. But sorry, it's early. Not much.
No, it's fine. It's like 4 a.m. where you are. I'm sure it feels like 4 a.m. to you.
Sure.
We could go to best bet.
I went with Zags. I already did it, so we're not going to waste more time on that.
Okay.
Overwise, I think Providence and South Dakota State had something to it. I think both of those teams, like Colin said, are going to fit that mold, draw some fouls, and they can also shoot. So if you can make threes and get to the free throw line, you're probably going to see points.
Okay, Colin, you want to lock it in? You want to lock in your slate-approved pick, your favorite bet, your best bet for today?
Shout out Eric Musselman. Woo Pig Suey. I got the Hogs, 4.5. Let's go down in flames if we have to, but if we were perfect yesterday until BYU went on a 20-0 run. So here we go. Let's go. We'll take the Hogs and in a big one. And let's just get all of these little people who like the trendy little 12s and 13s. Just give me my money. Let's go.
All right. Well, Julian, this segment went about as smooth as I expected for two dudes being in Vegas, waking up early in the morning. Thanks so much for playing by the rules, Jules.
You're welcome. That's what I do.
I hope you both have a great day, and thanks so much for the help. Go down some coffee, mash some carbs, like fuel up for the marathon that you have today out there. We'll go from March Madness to March movement, talking busy free agency periods around MLB and NFL right after this. All right, major action in the free agency markets continuing to own headlines around MLB and NFL. It's March movement, baby, and DraftKings contributors Gary and Thorne and Nick Fryer are here for a rock-solid March movement segment. One, I'm sure that they've read correctly, unlike Julian Edlow in the last segment, which was kind of an important one, because March Madness starts today. All right, so you two breaking down the latest moves with free agent frenzy overlapping really for the first time between these two leagues, these two sports. Watson watch. The mood is tense. I have been on some serious reports, but nothing quite like this. Deshaun Watson reportedly torn between the Browns, Saints, Panthers, and Falcons. Prediction time, Gare Bear. Which team will he choose and why?
So I think he's probably going to want to stay out of the AFC. I think the AFC is pretty stacked right now. There's a reason that 3 of these teams we're talking about reside in the NFC South. It's just far more open in that conference. So
Garion,
can probably, yep.
Let me cut you off. The Browns, as we are talking right now, Adam Schefter tweeting, the Browns have been eliminated from the conversation. So now we're looking at just the NFC South, I guess.
Genius.
So all I'm hearing is that my validity as an analyst is spot on.
Yeah, baby.
So maybe he'll keep eliminating them as I get to my answer here. I think it's going to be the Saints. And it sounds weird to say that they are the team with the most organizational stability because, they just lost – in the last 2 seasons, they've lost Drew Brees and Sean Payton. But I think as a team, as an ownership group, they are really like one of the best examples of an NFL organization the last 15 years. So if you're Deshaun Watson and you had to play for the Texans for the first 5 years of your career, do you really want to go to the Panthers or the Falcons? I mean, I was going to say Browns in there too, but now we know he doesn't want to go to the Browns. But I think that really accentuates the point here. I think he wants to find a stable situation, and I think the Saints are the most stable of those situations. Do they have some question marks with their wide receiving core? Sure. But I think Deshaun Watson, especially if that rumor about like Teron Armstead is kind of waiting in the wings, he's going to re-sign with the Saints if they get Deshaun Watson. If that's true, if they're like a package deal,
yeah,
I think that really pushes this home for the Saints.
And you know what, Gary? There's been reports over the past few days that multiple players, free agents right now, are kind of sitting back, waiting to see what his decision is because they want to play with Deshaun Watson. And Nick, you have reports now the Saints have restructured like contracts with multiple players to clear substantial salary cap space, which would pave the way for Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, and I think we saw that he got his second meeting with the Saints just recently. Might have been the other day. I was kind of surprised when I see the Panthers and the Falcons pop up on this because Gary was kind of saying those are two teams where it's like, do you really want to go after what you've been dealing with in Houston? You want to go play there? And then the same thing with Cleveland too, for that matter. The Saints make the most sense for me. I think Gary highlighted well from an organizational standpoint. And then I know there are some issues in terms of depth, but still, he's going to get to play alongside Alvin Kamara. I think that's going to make a huge difference for him when you have a playmaker like that you can kind of lean on in different ways throughout the course of the season. And if we get other free agents that are going to decide, you know what, I want to go play for New Orleans because Sean Watson's there, I think they're in a really good spot to sign him, to acquire him if moving forward.
I think Jeff Ulrich is the only dude on this planet who thought that Atlanta would be like the best fit for him when there is no one there, nothing there. Jeff's only argument was, well, he's from the Atlanta area. Turns out New Orleans isn't too far from that. One thing Atlanta did win, guys, that Julio Jones trade. Dude was cut by the Titans after just one injury-plagued season in Tennessee. It'll save the team almost $10 million in cap space. Question is, how much does he have left in the tank? So which teams could be a good fit for him, Nick?
Yeah, I would think at this stage in his career, the only thing that he really has left to do is go and chase a ring. And I would understand that at this point in your career. I know some guys don't want to do that after a while. You want to win with the guys you played with forever, but still, that's not an option for Julio Jones. So I would think with the loss of Odell Beckham Jr., that if the Rams, why not go and take a flyer on this guy if they can work out the numbers in the correct way for him that fit. I think that makes a lot of sense. I know I saw the Raiders pop up a little bit on this, and that would be kind of like a random Raiders move, I feel like, too, where I don't think anybody takes them seriously, but they take themselves more seriously than they really are. They do need the help. I mean, it's just Renfrow and Waller out there right now. And I know, being in New England, people want to throw out the Patriots out there. Yeah, sure, it could work. I don't know how much it's really going to help them, but they haven't done a whole heck of a lot this offseason. So it wouldn't surprise me if they went and decided at random they're going to go with Julio Jones. But I think the best fit for him right now is out in LA with the Rams.
Okay. Well, yeah. I mean, the Raiders are got to do what they can to keep up with the Chiefs, the Chargers, and the Broncos in that division arms race. Garen, what are your thoughts on Green Bay? I know Jarvis Landry kind of been rumored there because Green Bay the past few years really lacking that number two.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's kind of funny that Nick brought up Odell Beckham Jr. because I think he's a really good sort of template for what we're probably looking at in the quote unquote Julio Jones sweepstakes. I'm not sure he deserves to have a sweepstakes anymore, but it is what it is. It's kind of just that list, the list we've had for maybe the last 18 months of when a quote unquote star receiver becomes available, what are the teams that are maybe looking to invest in that position? And it tends to just be the Patriots, the Ravens, the Packers, the Rams. I do think you could throw the Raiders into that category because they are a team that, as Nick was saying, lacks wide receiver depth. There's an arms race going on right now in the AFC West, but I could definitely see the Ravens hopping in there and taking a stab at someone like Julio Jones. I think you could probably predict a scenario where, Davante Adams wants a second guy there. I know he was trying to recruit Odell last season. But even the Saints, we just talked about the Saints. If this is a situation where they get Deshaun Watson, maybe they try to acquire Julio Jones and really bolster their receiving core for their new quarterback. So I think that group of 6-7 teams is probably the front runners for Julio's services. And, look, he's played 19 games the last 2 seasons. It's kind of strange because his number one asset as a fantasy asset was that he was always playing in those peak seasons. And now it doesn't seem like he's going to have that health. But if he can be the number 2 or 2.5 wide receiver on a really good team, I think that's probably his best scenario right now.
Yeah, we know that Dallas could use a veteran option for their number 3 receiver. We also know that the Cowboys and Jerry Jones, they love pursuing big names, but we also know the Dodgers love doing the same thing. So let's go to the diamond here because Freddie Freeman, guys, signing with LA for 6 years, $162 million, according to reports. So Freeman joining an already stacked lineup. Yeah, it's dangerous. It's sick. It's nasty. It should be illegal and should be hitting right in the heart of that lineup. Was this the best case scenario for Freeman's fantasy value, Garion?
I think you could make a case that him signing with any number of the AL East teams he was linked to, just because of ballpark factors, might have been the best case scenario. But the funny thing is, he really didn't have a bad scenario. I mean, you look at the teams he was linked to, there are 5 teams currently projected to be scoring over 5 runs per game. Obviously, the Dodgers are one of those teams, but that group also includes the Red Sox, the Rays, and the Jays. Like, he really couldn't have gone to a place where you'd go, oh, not great for Freddie's value. I do think the one interesting thing to note about the Dodgers specifically is this is a team that last year, you go through their positional player game logs. Only one guy had over 600 plate appearances. They were definitely a team that maybe like to utilize that 10-day IL a little bit to get some rest in. They do have some veteran guys. But, they just had the depth to give dudes days off. I think the fact that the National League has the DH slot now, and you can kind of give half days off without taking someone fully out of the lineup, it makes me a little bit more optimistic that Freeman's going to be closer to like the 650 plate appearances mark than he would the 600 plate appearances mark with a Dodgers team that might be able to coast through the entirety of September.
Okay, let's go to you, Nick. How do you feel he fits there? Is this going to be good for his fantasy value?
Yeah, I would think so. This is, I will say though, it's disappointing just because the Dodgers continue to spend money. They've turned into the West Coast Yankees. I know, I said it the other day, but it's a little disappointing. But also they're not winning, right? If they're not winning titles, so it's not really going to hurt too many people other than maybe the Giants and the Padres. But I do think you look at this lineup and it's ridiculous. Who are pitchers going to pitch around in this lineup? You have Freddie Freeman, Mookie Betts, Trey Turner, Muncy when he's healthy, Cody Bellinger if he gets things together back completely again, Justin Turner, Will Smith. I don't know if I just said Trey Turner already too, but I'll say him again twice. That's fine. Chris Taylor, AJ Pollock. This lineup is a joke. So from a day-to-day standpoint, yeah, Garion makes a great point that the Dodgers are going to go and rest guys here and there. It makes a lot of sense. Why wouldn't you when you have this kind of depth too? Because I think they still have Gavin Lux in all this as well. So yeah, why not give them rest? But day to day, yeah, I would think you're going to have to get at least a piece of this lineup day in and day out because there's going to be so many run production opportunities.
All right, guys, we got 3 more baseball topics to hit on here, so let's pick up the pace so we can get to them all. Third baseman, defensive wizard Matt Chapman traded from Oakland to Gare Bears Blue Jays. Yankees, though, still the favorite to win the AL East by a small margin on the DK Sportsbook, but should they be gearing? Like, why not Toronto after this offseason?
I think there's 2 ways to look at their 2021, which is they got a little unlucky in the sense that they were a 99 Pythagorean win team. They should have probably had 8 more wins than they actually had in the regular season. However, they also had Marcus Semien, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., and Bo Bichette only miss a combined 4 games. So can Bo Bichette and Vlad continue to be that healthy is really a big thing. Matt Chapman obviously helps in a number of ways. Like you said, a defensive wizard at third base. The border stuff really helps the Jays as well. I mean, it's a weird situation.
Yeah.
The fact that unvaccinated players can't travel to Toronto. We still haven't figured out what exactly is going on with the New York City mandate. That could be a huge Aaron Judge issue. Like right now, he's penciled in to play 72 games this season. It's crazy. That probably gets resolved, but that's on the table right now. I will say, though, in conversations like this, maybe just bet the Rays at plus 300 because that seems to be the bet to make at all times.
All right, Nick, talk to me here. I don't think the question's about his defense. The question is what he can bring to the lineup with Chapman.
Yeah, I think you're going to see some high team run totals throughout the course of the season. You have to. I mean, between Vladdy, Bo, Springer, Teoscar Hernandez, and now Chapman, you got Gurriel as well too. I mean, I think the one thing with Chapman that I'm most interested in seeing over the course of the season is how his average trends. I know we talk about more of the ancillary numbers, but this is a guy who was hitting a little bit better for average over the last couple seasons, taking quite a dip. I know the Jays isn't necessarily as hitter-friendly as ballpark as maybe Yankee Stadium is or Camden Yards, but this is a big improvement from the Coliseum, so his power numbers are still going to go up for sure. Still going to be a guy you're going to want to consider rostering day in and day out, but I think Garen makes a great point when you're talking about who's going to win the East. I still think you got to look at the Rays first just because they just know how to get it done no matter what talent they have there.
I mean, it's crazy. You're going to possibly see unvaccinated visiting players aren't even going to be able to play in Toronto. And as Gary had mentioned, who knows if unvaccinated home players are going to be able to suit up for the Yankees. Let's get to our last one here, guys. As we all predicted, Chris Bryant signs a huge 7-year, $182 million contract with the Rockies. Colorado finally gets a third baseman. They've never, ever had a good one. Wait a minute. They traded away Nolan Arenado just last year because they wouldn't give him a similar contract. The franchise is absolutely perplexing everyone on the planet. Make sense of this for me, Garion.
You can't. I mean, it's. I guess an organization may be thinking that they could, win the PR battle by signing a big player and people would get off their back. But as everyone's pointed out, this makes no sense when you basically paid the St. Louis Cardinals $50 million to take Nolan Arenado 2 seasons ago. So I can see maybe why Bryant is doing this. I mean, he's a guy who already has his World Series ring. He already has his MVP. Go out to Colorado for 8 seasons or 7 seasons and just hit 35 home runs a year. Really pad those counting stats, man. Get that Hall of Fame case going. But I don't know. Like, this makes absolutely no sense. Bryant will probably be traded before the end of this contract. It's just ridiculous. And I will say, too, Bryant actually had a really, I don't want to say bad, but like average final 4 months of the season. It's probably fixed by going to Colorado, but there are some definite concerns there.
All right, go ahead, Nick. Try to make sense of it.
You cannot make sense of this whatsoever. This is. I mean, honestly, if I'm Nolan Arenado, I'd be personally offended by this move. I mean, like you talk about going and signing another star player to win the PR battle. Sign a guy who plays a different position. You sign a guy who's his replacement, and like Gary said, you paid half his contract or whatever it was to send Nolan Arenado away, and what he did for the franchise and how they were pretty good when he was there too. So I would be pretty upset. But then again, you're with the Cardinals now; they're always a contender no matter what every season. So how mad can you really be if you're Arenado? One thing the Rockies is like a contender in the division and everything. I mean, come on, what is it, like plus 10,000 or whatever? Yeah. Probably got worse when they added Bryant. But I would look at Bryant's home run totals on DraftKings Sportsbook when those go live, because that'll be an interesting prop over the course of the season.
Yeah, so Rockies now plus 7,500 at least to win the NL West. It is kind of weird because they even gave the guy a complete no trade clause in return for a no opt-out clause. So definitely strange times. Appreciate you guys. I know you're both big on NBA as well, so feel free to stick around because there's one game tonight, and I wish it was a better game because it's the showdown absolutely nobody asked for. Yeah! All right, while all of you are enjoying amateur basketball tonight, the real ones will be soaking up a pair of 18-win professional teams trying to out-tank one another. That's right, just one NBA game on the slate tonight, and it's a clash between two bottom-of-the-barrel titans, the Pistons and the Magic. I just heard producer Slates compare this to Thursday Night Football is back. All right, it's important to talk about this showdown, which is why DraftKings contributor Jeff Pratt, RotoWire's Nick Whalen, they are here in the house on your screen. Let's get weird. Who's your captain, Jeff?
Yeah, with Jalen Suggs out due to a bone bruise and Markelle Fultz still on a minutes restriction, I think paying up for Cole Anthony at 12.6K as your captain makes sense. To be very clear, these are two very bad teams with no real studs, besides Cade Cunningham, who is emerging as a young star in this league. So I don't think there's an obvious player to pay up for. It might be different if Cade was 100% today, but he's currently questionable with an illness and likely won't be a full go even if he suits up. Anthony has scored 32 plus DraftKings fantasy points in 3 straight games and saw a usage rate of 27.3% last contest with Suggs out. Detroit ranks 25th in fantasy points allowed to guards, and Orlando is going to be looking for offense with a couple of key pieces banged up and out tonight. I also quickly like the idea of paying up for Mo Bamba at 10.8K if Wendell Carter Jr. is out. He's currently listed as questionable with a left ankle sprain, so keep an eye on the injury report there.
All right, who you want? Go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the slate hinges on the status of Cunningham and Wendell Carter. Chuma Okeke, also questionable for Orlando. I don't even know why this game is on the schedule. Why not just take the night off if you're the NBA? But nonetheless, I have Cole Anthony as my kind of penciled-in captain for now as well. Again, that could change if Cunningham is ruled in or ruled out. Same with Wendell Carter. But you throw Anthony in there at captain, you could still fit one of Carter or even both of Carter and Cunningham if you want. But if you throughout the day, we'll get some updates there. I still have Cade Cunningham as a non-captain spot. in my lineup. You could throw Marvin Bagley in there. You could throw Sadiq Bey in there to pair with Cole Anthony as your captain. No Jeremy Grant tonight for Detroit as well. So that should open up some usage elsewhere on that roster.
Is there such thing as value in this showdown, Jeff?
Yeah, there is. I'm really looking at a couple of Magic guards. Markelle Fultz at 4,400. I'm not sure if you can call that value, but being on a minutes restriction hasn't really stopped him from producing after his return from a torn ACL. He scored 30-plus DraftKings fantasy points in 2 of his last 3 contests and should see an expanded offensive role since Jalen Suggs is out with a bone bruise. Continuing the trend, focusing on those Orlando guards, Gary Harris stands out to me at 3K. He's another guy that has benefited from that Suggs injury. He's racked up 16-plus DK fantasy points in 4 straight games. Quickly moving to the Pistons side, Isaiah Livers seems like the ultimate bargain play at 2,400. The usage isn't there, but he's played 23-plus minutes in 3 of his last 5 games, and he scored 20-plus fantasy points in back-to-back contests. With Jeremy Grant out due to knee inflammation, Livers should hit that minutes mark and has tremendous value.
Okay, Nick, hook us up, dude.
Yeah, I kind of alluded to a couple of my value plays, and really, outside of like 3 players in this showdown, like everybody technically qualifies as a value. But I do like Sadiq Bey, who's not been great lately, but you take Jeremy Grant out of the equation, you potentially take Cade Cunningham out of the equation. That's like 35, almost 40 shots per game that you're removing from that Detroit offense. I mean, Cade Cunningham over his last 7 is averaging 21 field goal attempts per contest. So if he doesn't play, that's huge for a player like Sadiq Bey. I do like Marvin Bagley, kind of in that mid value at this point on this slate. He's at 7,600. If he's not your captain, still played a ton of minutes, even with Isaiah Stewart returning from his injury. He's pretty clearly getting an audition over these last couple of weeks over a guy like Kelly Olynyk, who's still playing like 10 to 15 minutes. Just a weird signing by Detroit that never made a lot of sense. And then, RJ Hampton, another player to consider with Jalen Suggs out. But as you alluded to, Emerson, it's a very strange slate to try to build a lineup on.
Yeah, for sure, dude. So take us over, Nick, to the DK Sportsbook. So now O-Town favored by field goal, favored by 3 points here. Who covers?
It's an impossible choice. Honestly, I think if Cade Cunningham plays, I'll lean toward Detroit, who's sneakily been pretty good with Cade Cunningham in the lineup since the All-Star break. They had a stretch where they won something like 7 out of 9 or 6 out of 8, something like that. Like they've sneakily been pretty respectable over the last month compared to what we saw from them over the previous 3 or 4 months. So if Cunningham's in, give me Detroit to cover. If Cunningham ends up being ruled out, regardless of what happens with Wendell Carter, I'll roll it out with Orlando.
Okay, what do you think, Jeff?
Yeah, I like the Pistons here. Detroit is 11-1 in their last 12 games against the spread. Now they've lost 4 in a row, but that's a pretty misleading stat in those 4 contests. They've kept it close with Miami, the Clippers, Boston, and Chicago. Besides the Clippers, those are some elite teams in the NBA right now. You can count on Dwayne Casey's squad to show up and play hard every single night. It might not be pretty, but they're going to give 110%. The same just can't be said for Orlando, who just got beat by 42 by Brooklyn. If Wendell Carter Jr. is unable to play through his ankle sprain, I think you could be looking at another blowout. I really don't care that Jeremy Grant is out, and I won't care if Cade Cunningham is unable to play. Whoever Dwayne Casey puts on the floor plays hard and gives them a chance.
And then, Jeff, looking at the total here in the DK Sportsbook, 219, and it just seems like the under would be the obvious choice. So under 6-1 in the Pistons' last 7 overall, 5-2 in the Magic's last 7.
Yeah, it's just simple math here. Let's say to hit that number, both of these teams need to hit 110 points. Detroit has done that just once in their last 5 games. They're down at least 1 key starter, maybe 2 if Cade Cunningham's out. Orlando has done it just twice in their last 7 games and will be down at least 1 key player, maybe more if Wendell Carter Jr.'s out. This feels like an ugly, low-scoring affair, like you said, Emerson.
Yeah, Nick, do you agree with that? I mean, just 2 bad teams who show little to no consistency.
Yeah, I feel the same way. This number's already fallen in the last hour this morning, could continue to fall throughout the day. I mean, these teams are 24th and 29th in offense since the All-Star break, and they're 11th and 20th, respectively, in defense. So, defensively, they haven't been disastrous. Orlando knocking on the door of the top 10. So everything kind of points to the under here. It would have to probably get down closer to like 215, 216 for me to consider going the other way.
All right, you guys have done such a tremendous job. We're going to go ahead and reward your efforts by ending this segment early. Gentlemen, you deserve the rest of the day off after what you just did. Thank you. We got Hockey Talk celebrating St. Patrick's Day after this quick break. St. Patrick's Day is alive and well with our two-man hockey panel, RotoWire's Paul Bruno and host of the Fantasy on Ice podcast for NHL.com, Pete Jensen. 10 games to choose from, so let's have you choose from it your favorite DFS plays. Once again, Mcdavid and Dry Saddle highlighting the center position on tonight's slate. They go up against Buffalo at home, so ownership, expect that to be pretty high. What's your approach to the center position tonight? Would you try to fit both in your lineup, Pete?
It's tough. I mean, there are so many great options on a big slate like this. I think top of my list is a guy I talked about on the previous show, JT Miller, 13-game point streak. I think he's dismissing a lot of the trade rumors with his recent performance and a favorable opponent against the Detroit Red Wings, who are giving up like 5+ goals almost every single game these days. And then another center I'm looking at is a bit more under the radar, Rem Pitlik from the Montreal Canadiens. He's playing with Cole Caulfield, who has been outstanding ever since that coaching change to Marty St. Louis. He's got 19 points in 15 games since the coaching change, Caulfield. But Rem Pitlik is a rookie who's been producing at even strength all season long. He's around the top 10. Actually 5th in even strength goals among rookies and 7th in even strength points among rookies. So this is a hidden gem. We haven't talked about him much, but he's been producing and he's the center on Caulfield's line. So definitely get him in your lineup.
All right, I'm counting here about 6 guys that'll cost you at least $7K, Paul. At center.
I love the calls that Pete made. They're both guys that are on my list, so I will not talk more about them, but outstanding picks. If you go to the top of the board, I always wonder why there's a discrepancy between Mcdavid and Dry Saddle. It's $700, and I'll make the case. McDavid is the one that's shooting more right now. He's got 42 shots on goal in his last 10 games, where Dry Saddle has only 24. And McDavid's got 14 points, 7 on the goals. That's where the big point totals are in the DK. So he's outscored Dry Saddle 7-4 in that stretch. So that accounts for more than a $700 discrepancy. And if you go the Edmonton route, I think you got to go with McDavid. If you want to go a little bit cheaper, though, in between all the guys that are at the top and JT Miller, let's say, the guy that I would focus on is Alex Barkov. He gets that tasty matchup against a Vegas club that's in a shambles right now. He's got 15 points in his last 10 games, 30 shots on goal, averaging over 15 DK points per night on a Florida team that's outscoring everybody this year.
Okay, Paul, if you're paying up at center, which it sounds like you may be doing, it's going to be tough to fit Ovi in your lineup. $8,400, Ovechkin facing Columbus, but fade him at your own peril because he's got 5 goals in his last 6 games. You spending up on the wing tonight, or are you going to look for cheaper options?
Because I'm going to go to JT Miller like Pete suggested on the center ice position. So Ovi makes a real good case for himself every night, but he gets a good matchup tonight against a Columbus team that's not very good at defending their end of the rink. He's got 43 shots on goal, far out shooting almost everybody at the position and averaging almost 16 DK points per night. So that speaks for itself and accounts for his $8,400 price tag. But a guy who's almost right there with him, although he scores in bunches, it seems, is Robertson for Dallas. $6,800 his price tag. He gets the matchup against Montreal. Their defense is going to be a little bit weaker because they got rid of one of their key pieces in a trade yesterday. Don't forget that. He's averaging 17 DK points per game over his last 10 and has scored 43 shots on goal, getting 9 goals in that stretch too.
Pete, what's your strategy here at the wing?
So we were talking about the Edmonton guys. I think a great way to tap into them, because they're always prone to have big nights, is getting Evander Kane into your lineup. You'll have to spend a little bit to get him, but he's been worthwhile so far since signing the one-year deal with Edmonton a couple of months ago. 17 points and 70 shots on goal in 21 games. And he's playing with McDavid, NHL scoring leader, and Kyler Yamamoto, who's another good value option for fantasy. They're facing the Buffalo Sabres, who are coming off a big week, but maybe a little bit of a letdown upcoming for Buffalo, who's been really inconsistent this season, and they're swinging around on that Western Canada road trip. It might not be pretty for the Sabres, so get Evander Kane in your lineup.
Well, let's save the people some money here back on the blue line. Give me a very inexpensive option. Someone who could be give me someone under 4K who could help your lineup tonight, Pete.
Sure. I mean, there are a couple of guys for sure. I think that, definitely you look at what's going on with the Dallas Stars on their blue line. You could look at Eza Lindell. You could look at John Klingberg as well. I don't know that he's going anywhere at the trade deadline, but we'll see. But if you're worried about this is the time of the year where if a guy's on the trade block, he might get pulled from the game right before puck drop. Eza Lindell, I don't think is going anywhere. And he's a cheaper option on the blue line who's been heating up a little bit in the absence of Miro Heiskanen, who's out with mono for the foreseeable future. So, yeah, I like Eza Lindell a lot against Montreal. It's a nice bounce-back spot for Dallas.
Okay, Paul, save us some cash.
I'm going to give you 3 names to think about also with Dallas. Ryan Suter. This guy has been a point producer all his career in the NHL, and he's thrust into an opportunity where he's the power play quarterback on their first unit of late. He's parlayed that into 6 points in his last 10 games played, and he blocks shots as well. So he's averaging about 7+ points in DK every night. He costs $3,500. Almost as good as that is Dante Fabro at Nashville, $3,300. He's in Philadelphia tonight. 6 points in his last 10 games played, 21 blocks and 20 minutes per game. He's averaging over 9 points in the DK play every night, playing on their first D pair. And then finally, in Toronto, TJ Brody of the Leafs. He's not with Morgan Riley of late, and that's giving him a chance to make some hay offensively himself. He's taken it upon himself to really show off his skills with the stretch passes, sending Leaf forwards on breakaways, 2-on-1s, it seems, every game. He's responsible for those deep passes, and the bombs have worked out. He's got 7 points in his last 10 games, averaging almost 9 points a game. And don't forget, he blocks a ton of shots, and that's going to come into play tonight because Carolina is one of the league leaders in shots on goal per game.
All right, Paul, we'll get you out of here with this. Slate-approved pick. Give me the one guy you need to have in your lineup on this Big Ten gamer.
Well, Pete teased it earlier. Cole Caulfield has to be in your lineup tonight. $4,700, the price tag, still not being respected for his recent production. 6 goals, 14 points his last 10 games, pouring shots on goal at a very good rate, over 3 per game, and averaging almost 15 DK points per game. He shouldn't be below 6, in my opinion. And then Matthew Barzell against the Rangers. Look, he hasn't lit it up all season long, but he's heating up of late. 9 points in his last 10 games played, and it's always a great game when they face the Rangers, a rivalry game in Madison Square Garden that elevates the Islanders, and they've been playing better of late. So I would try to get him in at $4,400. And Oliver Bjorkstrand of the Columbus Blue Jackets won't be highly owned, and that's a shame because he's been pouring in a lot of offense as well. 10 points and 35 shots on goal in his last 10 starts, only costing $4,700 to me.
All right, Pete, Slate-approved pick.
I definitely agree with what Paul said about the Islanders. Their offense has been heating up lately, whether it's Palmieri or Anders Lee or Brock Nelson. There's some good value on these guys, whereas normally you look at the Islanders as a team you don't want to get anywhere close to offensively, but they've changed their tune, even though they're, kind of out of contention right now. But in that same game, I'm definitely looking to see if Frank Vetrano is going to be debuting, because if he is, this guy's been an underrated bottom 6 forward for the Florida Panthers. He's actually the 3rd leading goal scorer behind Barkov and Huberdeau over the past 4 seasons combined, which says a lot about his consistency in that department. So if he lands with either Panarin or Zibanejad in the top 6 for his debut, and there are holes on both of those lines right now, I like Frankie in his New York debut to score a goal maybe tonight.
All right, bros. Good stuff. Until next time, one more break to go, one more block to go, and there's a new DFS sheriff in town. How to approach the brand spanking new F1 Fantasy Racing Contest when we come back. Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention? I have just been texted an urgent and horrifying news story. I need all of you to stop what you're doing and listen. DraftKings has launched a new daily fantasy sport in the lobby. Formula One comes to DK and is live just in time for this weekend's race. And because racing expert Jeff Ulrich was unavailable, DraftKings contributor Piers Dietrich is here to tell you all about the ins and outs of F1 on DraftKings, looking so handsome in his suit and tie. All right, I know the answer here because I read your How to Play article on DK Nation, but I'm still going to ask you. What's the format, Pierce?
The format is Showdown, basically. You're going to pick 5 drivers and a constructor is a team. And of those 5 drivers, one of them is going to be your captain. The captain costs 1.5 in salary, gets 1.5 in points. It's your basic Showdown type of contest.
Interesting. Okay. How does the scoring work? Can you break that down for me, please?
Sure. It's like NASCAR or anything. You want guys to finish towards the front. You don't need to make it any more complicated than that. You want guys to win and finish up front. Now, the difference between this and NASCAR, you can get value drivers that will start in the back and through just the way the race plays out, go forward. In F1, informally, there is an A class and a B class. And most of your value drivers are going to, I'm going into the wrong thing here. Scoring-wise, finishing position points, passing points, laps led points, and beating a teammate. Those are the big categories. Place differential is not a big deal in this type of scoring. So you don't need to focus on that. Just get guys to finish up near the front.
Okay. The strategies. What kind of strategies will players be looking to employ here? Like, I just opened this up on DK website. Like, I mean, does the team really matter like a whole lot either? Because Jeff was talking smack about Mercedes.
Yeah, team's going to matter, but we don't have enough time to talk about teams.
Okay.
We don't have enough time to talk about teammates. Those are definitely going to be strategies that are going to need a lot more lengthy of a discussion. But really, your focus is finishing position. You want guys to finish near the front. Now, as I was talking about earlier, the value plays aren't going to be able to finish near the front. So your strategy is going to have to change when you look for value. There is informally an A class and a B class, and the value is going to come from the B class. And instead of envisioning or approaching those drivers as how can I get them towards the front, you just want your B class or value driver to do better than the rest. It's all relative. Whereas in NASCAR, your value guys got to get in the top 10. They got to have a big day. That's not going to be the case in F1. They're not going to race their way to the front. So lower your standards, have a different approach. Just basically try to pick the best of that B class.
All right, what's happening this weekend, though? Because this is going to be the first F1 race that people can build lineups for on DraftKings. Can you tell me a little more about it?
Yeah, this is the kickoff of the season, round 1 at Bahrain. They just tested at Bahrain last week, and again, we could spend a half an hour just talking about the storylines emerging from Bahrain and all the aerodynamic changes that have been implemented, and basically a salary cap has been implemented. So there's a lot changing. There's also off-season storylines that we could go on and on, but hopefully a lot of those will be answered going into this week. As far as contests, there is a $50,000 to first prize contest, which I think is going to be the one that attracts most players. $15 to enter. It's definitely worth a shot. It locks at 11 a.m. on Sunday.
Okay, dude. You got any picks for us? I think a lot of people are going to be new to this.
Yeah, they are going to be new to this, but it's okay. Look, so
Thank
there's
you.
only 20 drivers to pick from, so it's not a lot of homework to do. And I'll go ahead and give you the guy to play. It's Max Verstappen. You may not be familiar with him.
Ooh.
You probably know Lewis Hamilton. And if we were going to compare Hamilton to somebody, he's like a Jeff Gordon. He is technical. He's a brilliant strategist. He has all the skills. Whereas Max Verstappen is more of a Dale Earnhardt Sr. He is an aggressive bully, and he won the championship last season. Hamilton may have met his match. Hamilton is a strategy guy. He's thoughtful. And we saw this play out several times last season. Let's say they're both approaching a turn. Well, Hamilton can try to save his car and not wreck and concede the spot. Well, then Max wins. Or he can fight Max for the spot, and Max just doesn't care. Max will wreck them both. And so in that case, Hamilton loses again. You can't use strategy against this guy. You can't use strategy against the Scorpion. Max finally had equal equipment last year, and he won the championship. He has better equipment this year, Verstappen is going to go crazy this season.
Man, you're going right off the top. You're going right off the top of the most expensive dude available in this field, $12,000, unless you want to captain him, man. 18 grand here. I'm told this is as popular as the NFL on DK Nation. Is that true?
I hope so. I mean, this is the second biggest sport in the world, so I imagine that this thing's going to get pretty popular very quickly. I know the Sunday morning lock times aren't the greatest for everybody, but people will get used to it. People wake up early and play DFS or get their NFL lineups ready every single week, so we'll be fine.
Yeah, so it looks like that's an 11 a.m. Eastern time Sunday lock. So right now you have 71 hours, 9 minutes, and 22 seconds and counting. How can people follow the coverage here? You have a great how to play on the DK Nation website right now, as I mentioned.
Yeah, I've got my rankings article up. People should check that out. One of the things they're going to follow is Friday morning. You're going to have some very important practice sessions, and F1 does an incredible job with statistics. I mean, they give you everything you could possibly hope for. F1 TV does an excellent job with the coverage, and then you have qualifying. There's a little bit of homework that needs to be done. They use different compounds of tires. There's a lot of strategy. There's undercutting and overcutting with the pit stops. So, the first week might be kind of tricky and new to people, but once they, figure out the different strategies in the tires and familiarize themselves with just 20 drivers, I think people will love this.
Yeah, crazy. I mean, look at all these notes you have here. I don't understand half of this stuff. No stacks, constructor top 10s, constructor classified finish, spots versus grid position, driver classified at the finish. There is a lot of stuff, and you could get a leg up on your competition out there, folks, if you follow Pierce Dietrich over on Twitter, and make sure you read all of these F1 words on the DK Nation website. We don't know yet if Jeff Ulrich will be contributing to coverage, but we will find out here sooner rather than later. Thanks, Pierce. I hope you have a good weekend, okay? We'll see you later.
Yeah, happy St. Patrick's Day.
Hey, right back at you, man. Thanks for wearing green today. All right, we're going to have this.
Orange.
I know. You out of all of our analysts would be the dude to wear orange on a day you're supposed to wear green.
You're supposed to wear orange.
No, you're not. All right. Agreed. Hey, look, orange, green, we're DraftKings colors. We look great together. This is why we're best friends. We do have the slate tonight. Speaking of best friends, Adam Coppin and Reed T. Fowler. That's going to be on at 5 o'clock. And then the sweat will return tomorrow morning at 11 o'clock Eastern time. We'll see everyone later. Be safe today.